It was one of those cold, lonely nights in Chicago, the kind that makes the whole city feel empty. The rain wouldn't stop. It fell hard on the sidewalks, washing away footprints, sounds, and maybe even hope. Mike was driving home from another long day at the garage. His back ached, his eyes were tired, and his heart felt heavier than usual. Life hadn't been kind lately, but he was used to it. He just wanted to get home, take a shower, maybe eat something cheap, and fall asleep in front of the TV. Then he saw it. A small figure by the dumpster at the end of an alley. At first, he thought it was a stray dog, until he noticed the tiny hands and the trembling shoulders. It was a kid. Mike pulled over immediately, his heart pounding. He stepped out of the truck and walked slowly toward the boy. "Hey kid, you okay?" he asked, his voice soft but worried. The boy didn't answer. He just stared up at Mike with wide, terrified eyes. His lips were blue, and his little fingers clutched a dirty, torn blanket. "Where's your mom or dad?" Mike asked again. The boy shook his head. "Don't got one," he whispered. Those 3 words hit Mike like a punch to the chest. He'd seen broken cars, broken men. But this was different. This was a broken life. One that hadn't even started yet. Mike didn't think twice. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around the boy's shoulders. "All right, kid," he said quietly. "You're coming with me tonight." The drive home was silent. The boy didn't speak, just stared out the window with those empty eyes. When they got to Mike's small apartment, he gave him some soup, a warm blanket, and one of his old hoodies. "What's your name?" Mike asked gently. The boy hesitated, then said, "Eli." Mike smiled softly. "Well, Eli, I'm Mike. Guess it's just you and me now." That night, while the rain kept falling outside, Mike sat on the couch watching Eli sleep. He didn't know it then, but that small moment, that quiet act of kindness. 10 years passed. The rain that once fell on that cold night felt like a lifetime ago. Eli wasn't that frightened little boy anymore. He was 15 now, tall, smart, full of life. He had a quick smile, messy hair, and those same big brown eyes that once looked so lost. Mike had raised him like his own son. He taught him how to fix cars, how to stand up for himself, and how to be a decent man. Their life wasn't perfect. The bills were always late. The fridge was never full. But their home was warm and filled with laughter. Every morning, Mike would stand by the door as Eli left for school. "Don't forget your lunch," he'd say. Eli would roll his eyes, smiling. Yeah, old man. I got it." They were happy, or at least that's what Mike thought. But lately, something had changed. Eli had started staying out late. He wouldn't answer his phone. Some nights, he'd sneak in long after midnight, pretending nothing happened. Mike noticed the silence in his voice, the way his eyes looked distant. One evening, while cleaning Eli's room, he found something that made his stomach twist. An envelope filled with cash. Way too much for a 15-year-old to have. When Mike asked him about it, Eli snapped. "It's not what you think, okay? Just drop it." He walked away before Mike could say another word. That night, Mike sat in the living room, staring at the dark window. Something inside him whispered that the boy he once found by that dumpster was slipping away again. The next day, he decided to follow him after school. He parked his truck across the street and watched as Eli met a man in a black hoodie behind an old corner store. They spoke for a minute. Then Eli handed the man something small. Mike's heart sank. He didn't need to see more. He knew that look, that world. He'd seen it before in his own past. When Eli came home that night, Mike was waiting for him. "Where were you?" he asked quietly. "Eli frozze. Just out with friends." "Don't lie to me, son," Mike said, his voice breaking. "You think I don't know what's going on?" Eli's eyes filled with anger and hurt. He shouted, "You're not my dad." The words hit like a knife. Eli stormed off, slamming the door behind him. And Mike just stood there, staring at the empty hallway, feeling a silence heavier than any storm. The next morning, the apartment felt emptier than ever. Mike couldn't sleep. He sat in his chair, staring at the dark walls, replaying Eli's words over and over. "You're not my dad." Those words cut deeper than anything he had ever felt. He thought about the little boy he had found 10 years ago, shivering in the rain, and how he had given him a home, love, and safety. How could Eli say that now? Mike tried calling him, knocking on his door, but Eli wouldn't answer. The silence was suffocating. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. Mike opened it to see a police officer holding a photo of Eli. "Sir, do you know this boy?" the officer asked. Mike's heart stopped. "Yeah, that's my son." "What happened?" The officer sighed. "He was caught near the docks last night. Looks like he got involved with some bad people. We need you at the station." Mike grabbed his jacket and ran. At the station, Eli sat in a small room, head down, eyes red and tired. Mike's voice shook as he asked, "What the hell were you thinking?" Eli didn't look up. "I was trying to help," he muttered. "Help who?" Mike asked. "Myself," Eli whispered, his voice breaking. "I owed them money." Mike's stomach twisted. He wanted to yell, to punish, to protect, but he didn't know how. The officer returned with a small bag of items Eli had been carrying, enough to scare anyone. On the drive home, Eli stayed silent, staring out the window. Mike's heart ached with helplessness and fear. That night, the apartment was still. Mike could hear the rain tapping against the window. Then, around midnight, he heard a creak. A window had opened. He rushed in, but it was too late. The window curtains blew in the wind, and Eli was gone. Mike stood there, drenched in rain and despair, knowing that the boy he had raised, the one who once depended on him completely, was now out there in the dangerous world alone. Mike didn't sleep that night. He stayed awake, listening to the rain, imagining Eli out there alone. Every shadow on the street, every passing car made his heart jump. He couldn't believe this was happening. The boy he had raised, the one he had loved like his own son, was gone. At first, Mike went door to door, asking neighbors if they had seen anything. No one had. He drove around the city, scanning every alley, every park, every corner he could think of. He called Eli's friends, but no one answered. Each passing hour made the fear heavier, like a stone pressing on his chest. By midday, Mike found himself near the docks. Something told him to go there, an instinct he couldn't explain. The wind was cold and sharp, the smell of salt and fish heavy in the air. He saw a group of teenagers huddled near the warehouses, and for a moment his heart stopped. He thought he saw Eli. But it wasn't him, just another kid, another lost face in the shadows. Mike leaned against a lamppost, feeling helpless. Tears ran down his cheeks, mixing with the rain. He whispered Eli's name again and again, hoping that somehow the boy could hear him. "Amy! Eli, please come back." As night fell, Mike finally sat on the edge of the dock, staring at the water. He felt broken, powerless. Memories of the first night he found Eli came flooding back. The shivering little boy, the fear in his eyes, the moment Mike had promised to protect him. Now that promise felt fragile, like it could be shattered at any second. Just as he was about to leave, a shadow moved in the distance. Mike's heart raced. Could it be Eli? He ran toward it, but the figure disappeared before he could reach it. He was left with only the cold wind, the rain, and the echo of his own desperate voice. Mike knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't stop looking. No matter how long it took, no matter how dangerous it got, he had to find Eli. Mike spent the next few days chasing every lead, but the city seemed determined to hide Eli from him. Every corner, every alley, every shadow reminded him of that rainy night 10 years ago, when he first found the boy by the dumpster. Now, the boy he raised was out there, and Mike had no idea if he was safe. He visited old friends, talked to people in the neighborhoods he once knew, anyone who might have seen Eli. Each question brought more frustration. "Sorry, haven't seen him," they all said. Mike's chest tightened with every word. The guilt weighed on him. Had he failed? Had he not taught Eli enough to stay away from danger? Late one night, Mike drove down an abandoned street near the docks. A flicker of movement caught his eye. A figure was hiding behind a broken wall. He slowed down. It was Eli, but something was wrong. He looked scared, tense, and there were bruises on his arms.
Eli!
Mike shouted, running toward him. The boy froze, eyes wide, then turned and ran into the shadows. Mike followed as best as he could, but the streets twisted and turned. He saw other teenagers lurking around, people who didn't belong in a normal neighborhood, and they were watching Eli. Mike realized he had walked into a dangerous world, the one Eli had been dragged into. He stopped for a moment, catching his breath, and whispered to himself, "I won't lose you. Not again." Rain poured down, soaking him through, but Mike didn't care. He would do anything to bring Eli back home. Suddenly, a shout echoed from the alleyway. Eli's voice. "Mike, stay back," it warned. Mike's heart sank. What had Eli gotten himself into? He didn't answer, just watched as the boy disappeared into the darkness. For the first time in 10 years, Mike felt truly powerless. The boy he loved like a son was no longer a child. He was in a world Mike didn't understand, and the clock was ticking. The nights felt longer now. Mike couldn't sleep, couldn't eat properly. Every phone call he missed, every shadow he saw on the street, made his heart race. He knew Eli was out there, somewhere, and that thought alone kept him awake. Mike had started asking the wrong people for help. People from Eli's neighborhood, older teenagers who seemed tough and dangerous. They didn't answer honestly. Some ignored him, others laughed, and a few whispered warnings. "Stay out of it, man," one of them said. He chose his own path. Mike's hands shook. Chose his own path? Eli was 15, still a kid. One rainy evening, Mike found himself in a dimly lit alley. He had been following a lead for hours. The flickering streetlights cast long shadows on the wet pavement. And then he saw Eli, crouched behind a dumpster, looking small and scared. His clothes were torn, and there was a bruise forming under his eye. "Eli!" Mike called out softly. The boy flinched, hiding further behind the dumpster. Mike crouched down, keeping his voice calm. "I'm here, buddy. I just want to help." Eli shook his head. "You don't understand, Mike. Can't go back. I owe them." Mike's heart sank. "Owe them? Eli, you're just a kid. You don't owe anyone anything. You've got me, a home, love. You don't have to do this." Eli looked away, tears mixing with the rain. "It's too late for me, Mike. I'm already in too deep." Mike wanted to pull him into his arms, to tell him everything would be okay. But he knew it wouldn't be that simple. The boy was trapped in a world Mike barely recognized. A world of fear, debt, and dangerous choices. As the rain fell harder, Mike realized something terrible. The Eli he had found by the dumpster 10 years ago, the boy he had loved and protected, he was gone. And he didn't know if he could ever bring him back. Days passed, but Mike couldn't find a moment of peace. Every street corner, every dark alley, every whisper of wind reminded him of Eli. He had chased leads, questioned people, and followed shadows, but nothing brought the boy back. Eli had changed. The scared little boy Mike once knew was now a teenager living in a world of danger and fear. He didn't smile like he used to. He didn't trust anyone anymore. And Mike realized the longer Eli stayed there, the more he was losing him. One night, Mike got a tip from an old acquaintance. A man who knew the docks better than anyone. "Kid was here last night," the man said, eyes wary. "Be careful. He's in deep, and it ain't safe." Mike didn't hesitate. He drove to the docks, heart pounding. The rain fell steadily, washing away the light, leaving only shadows. He saw Eli again, standing near a group of older boys, exchanging something small and fast. Mike's chest tightened. He knew exactly what it was: drugs, money, a debt that had grown too big. "Eli!" Mike shouted, running toward him. Eli froze, eyes wide, then pushed through the boys and ran down the alley. Mike chased, slipping in the rain, but he couldn't catch up. Finally, Eli stopped in an abandoned warehouse, chest heaving. "Stay back, Mike," he warned, voice trembling. "You don't know what you're walking into." Mike looked at him, voice breaking. "I don't care what it is. I won't let anything happen to you. You're my son, Eli. I won't lose you again." Eli's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not your son. You don't understand." Mike wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him understand, but the words got stuck. He realized then that Eli had crossed a line he couldn't just fix with love or words. The boy was in danger, and Mike had no choice but to fight for him. Not just with words, but with everything he had. The storm outside mirrored the storm in Mike's heart, and he knew this was only the beginning. The days felt heavier now. Mike could barely focus on anything but Eli. Every moment without him was like a knife twisting in his chest. He knew the boy was in danger, and every hour that passed made it worse. One evening, Mike received a call from an unknown number. A voice, rough and cold, said, "If you want your kid back, come alone." Midnight, the old warehouse by the docks. The line went dead. Mike's heart raced. He didn't need anyone to tell him that Eli's situation had reached a breaking point. When he arrived at the warehouse, the rain soaked him through. The building looked abandoned, but shadows moved inside. Mike's hands shook as he pushed the door open. He saw Eli tied to a chair, bruises on his face, and two men standing over him. Fear and anger collided in Mike's chest.
"Eli," he shouted.
The boy's eyes widened. "Mike, I didn't." "You didn't what?" Mike yelled, rushing forward. "You could have died. Do you know how scared I was? Do you know how much I love you?" The men stepped forward, blocking him. Mike's fists clenched. He realized there was no turning back. He had to fight not just for himself but for Eli. He lunged, and the fight was chaotic. Rain splashing, shadows twisting, the sound of shouts and punches filling the air. Finally, Mike managed to overpower them, dragging Eli out into the rain. The boy collapsed into his arms, shaking and crying.
"I'm sorry," Eli whispered.
"I messed everything up. I scared you." Mike held him tight, feeling tears mix with the rain on their faces. "Don't ever apologize, Eli. You're alive, that's all that matters. We'll fix this, together." For a moment, the world was quiet. The storm outside had calmed, but inside, Mike felt the weight of what had almost been lost. He knew life wouldn't be the same again. Eli had seen too much, experienced too much, but he also knew one thing. They were still together, and he wouldn't let anything tear them apart again. After that night, Mike and Eli returned home, drenched and exhausted. The apartment felt quieter than usual, but the tension between them lingered. Eli avoided eye contact, and Mike could see the fear in his son's eyes. Even though the immediate danger was gone, the shadows of what happened still hung over them. For days, they barely spoke. Mike gave Eli space but stayed close, watching, waiting. Every little sound, every creak of the floor, reminded him of the warehouse, of the men who had hurt Eli. He couldn't stop thinking about how fragile life had become in just a few weeks. Finally, one evening, Eli broke the silence. "I don't want to go back," he whispered, sitting on the couch, head in his hands. Mike sat beside him, careful not to crowd him. "Go back where, buddy?" he asked softly. Eli's voice trembled. "Back to the life I had out there. I can't. I'm scared of myself." Mike nodded. "I know, and that's okay. You're safe now. We'll take it slow. You don't have to face it alone." Days turned into weeks, and slowly Eli started opening up. He told Mike about the men, about the pressure, about the mistakes he had made. Each story was painful. Each confession a weight lifted from Eli's shoulders. Mike listened, holding him, reminding him that no matter what, he was loved, and he wasn't alone. But Mike knew this wasn't the end. The streets Eli had been pulled into were still out there, and he couldn't protect him forever. All he could do was teach him, guide him, and be there when the past tried to catch up. That night, they sat together by the window, rain tapping softly against the glass. Mike whispered, "We survived, Eli. We're still here." Eli rested his head on Mike's shoulder, tears falling silently. "Yeah, we're still here," he murmured. It was a small victory, but for Mike, it felt like the beginning of something bigger. A chance to heal, to rebuild, and to finally face the future together. Weeks passed, and life slowly started to feel normal again. Eli was back in school, helping Mike around the apartment, laughing a little more each day. Mike thought maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. But deep down, He couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking, waiting. One evening, Mike returned from work to find a letter slipped under the door. He picked it up, hands trembling. The handwriting was familiar, small and shaky. He opened it. The words inside made his blood run cold. It was from Eli. "I'm sorry, Mike. I can't stay. I tried, but I'm not ready to be safe. I love you, and I'll never forget everything you've done for me. But I have to leave. I need to find my own way. Please forgive me." Mike fell to his knees, the letter shaking in his hands. The room seemed to spin around him. He had fought through rain, fear, and danger to keep Eli safe. He had believed that love, guidance, and protection would be enough. But the boy he had raised, the son he had loved with all his heart, had chosen a path Mike couldn't follow. Hours later, Mike found Eli's backpack by the window. It was gone. The streets that had once swallowed him seemed emptier than ever. Mike stood there in silence, the weight of loss pressing down like never before. He felt the guilt, the heartbreak, and the helplessness in every part of his being. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered into the empty apartment, "Eli, my boy, come back." But the only sound was the rain against the window, and the echo of a life that would never be the same. For the first time, Mike understood that some scars, no matter how much love you give, cannot be healed. And sometimes, the ones you save are the ones who leave you anyway.